Nearly 1 in 3 Americans have been personally affected by an extreme weather event in the last 2 years, according to a new poll from the PBS NewsHour, NPR and Marist. Those types of events, think hurricanes, floods, tornadoes and wildfires, are expected to increase in severity and frequency worldwide as the planet continues to warm due to climate change, and also affect more people in the process. Severe weather can wipe out homes and businesses and take a significant toll on social and economic stability. Communities of color, low-income communities and other marginalized groups are most vulnerable to those potentially devastating impacts because they are less likely to have the financial resources to prepare for and cope with these events, according to the 2018 National Climate Assessment. For many, the question is not as simple as choosing to pack up and move away from a place to escape the threat of extreme weather or the devastation left in its wake. It's also true that every part of the country will continue to be affected by climate change to varying degrees. Some people view that reality as an indication that there's no point in trying to avoid areas that are already seeing those dramatic effects on a regular basis.
Graphic by Megan McGrew/PBS NewsHour. 29% may sound like a relatively small portion of the population. But the devastating impacts of extreme weather events are far-reaching and often come with an enormous price tag. A record-breaking $22 billion weather and climate disasters occurred in the United States in 2020, costing the country a total of $95 billion in damages, according to the National Centers for Environmental Information. While most Americans report not having directly experienced an extreme weather event within the last few years, research suggests that a vast majority of people are on the same page about what's fueling them. A poll published Monday by Monmouth University found that 3 in 4 Americans believe that global climate change is causing more extreme weather patterns, as well as sea level rise, an established scientific fact that some people continue to doubt or deny. More than half, 56%, characterized climate change as a very serious issue, with strong political divides. 85% of Democrats and 56% of independents agreed with that statement, compared to 21% of Republicans. Increasingly, the Republican respondents either think not a serious problem, and they certainly do not think that the government should be taking more action to address it, said Tony McDonald, director of the Monmouth University Urban Coast Institute. It may seem intuitive to assume that the threat, or the direct experience, of losing your home to a wildfire or a flood is enough to significantly influence which places you'd want to live, and which you'd rather avoid. But the reality is rarely so straightforward. For those who have endured such a disaster, the choice of what to do next is informed by myriad questions, including whether they have the resources to stay and rebuild in the first place, said Gabrielle Wong-Parity, an assistant professor in the Department of Earth System Science at Stanford University. Graphic by Megan McGrew/PBS NewsHour. Persons of color tend to hold higher perceived risks in the face of these types of events, which may have to do with resources, i.e. personal wealth, Wong-Parity said. In the United States, a significant racial wealth gap has persisted for centuries as a direct and intended result of systemic racism. The typical white family has 8 times the wealth of the typical black family and 5 times the wealth of the typical Hispanic family, an analysis of 2019 data by the Federal Reserve found. Those numbers, drawn from the 2019 Survey of Consumer Finances, do not account for the coronavirus pandemic, which has taken a disproportionate economic toll on Black and Latino people in the U.S. After Hurricane Sandy devastated New Jersey in 2012, those who chose to stay and rebuild tended to be more affluent individuals, Wong-Parity said. Wealthier people tend to have more resources available to them, which means they may be less likely to feel the need to move or change their lifestyles even if they know they're at risk of experiencing a severe weather event, McDonald said. The same logic could extend for those who have actually been affected by a disaster and are deciding what to do next. More resources means more options. In this poll, people whose household income was $50,000 or more were slightly more likely than those making less than $50,000 to say they would rebuild. When it comes to generational divides, multiple experts pointed to the increased mobility associated with youth compared to older age. Younger people may feel more equipped to re-evaluate their options in terms of where to live compared to those who have been rooted in a community for years or even decades. Younger people are just going to be more mobile and able to move, whereas older people may have a home, They're more deeply entrenched in their communities, there's probably a stronger place attachment and physically what they're able to do, there's just more to lose if they have to pick up and go, Wong Parity said. And for those who have experienced a severe weather event, those community ties can outweigh concerns about something bad happening again. Americans who have been impacted have very similar attitudes about their neighborhoods, whether they would rebuild, whether they were likely to stay where they are, than Americans who hadn't, said Barbara Carvalho, director of the Marist poll. Wong Parity echoed that sentiment. People tend to experience strong place attachment, she said, and it's not easy to leave everyone and everything you know behind. Rudy Lopez, a resident of Los Angeles, said that the term extreme weather for him summons faraway images of hurricanes and flooding more so than the seasonal wildfires that occur in his own state. Lopez said that brush fires have ignited in the hills near his home over the years, but that the city is typically fairly quick to put those out. His location doesn't typically make him feel at immediate risk of being in the path of the larger fires that tend to burn farther outside the city. And though air quality from wildfire smoke is a long-term health concern, Wong Parity noted that not all people would see that as a reason to leave.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe